Girls, what is the most awkward thing a guy has ever said to you? In high school I had been talking to this guy from one of my classes, and he has been telling me about his depression and how he prefers to be a loner and whatnot, and then all of a sudden he tells me he's had dreams about shooting up the school. So of course, 14-year-old me is just like, well, you wouldn't shoot me though, right? Because we're friends. And he says honestly, I'd probably shoot you first. I always take my anger out on the people I care about the most. I avoided him at all costs after that. Edit, I didn't report him to the school, though I debated it for a long time. Our graduating class was 2014, and he never actually shot up the school. This is less of a said and more of a did. I was standing in line at my college cafeteria checkout, waiting until it was my turn to pay. The guy in front of me in line looks to be purchasing only a Snickers ice cream bar. He makes eye contact with me and smiles slyly. From there he raises an eyebrow, lightly tosses his Snickers in the air so that it flips twice, catches it, and gives me a knowing wink. This was the end of the interaction. To this day I have no idea what that display was about or how I was supposed to feel. ETA, to all those wondering what makes this awkward. I think the main factor for me was the timing of everything. We still had to wait in line for 2 to 3 minutes after the Snickers flip interaction. He was pretty jittery post-flip, maybe from the excitement of a successful Snickers toss. For work I had to live for a couple months in a house with 3 guys I didn't know. They all had girlfriends back home. During one of the first nights when we were all still getting to know each other, we stayed up late drinking and chatting. No hint of sexual tension or flirtation. Then 2 went to bed and I continued talking to the 3rd as we were having a conversation. I am mid-sentence when he interrupts me and says, "So I'm not going to cheat on my girlfriend." Pause, but cuddling wouldn't be out of the question. I was so taken aback and confused that after a brief moment of awkward silence I just picked right back up where I was in my story. You know, you do really well in the kind of job where you had to work for tips. Well, this is odd, but maybe he's trying to be nice. Try and diffuse the situation with small talk. What? Like a waitress? Yeah, I used to do that for a while actually. No. Intense staring, where you really had to work for them. Edit, to mention that this was an office coworker and that I don't know my grammar. My downstairs roommate and I were friendly but never hung out. He was rarely at home because he was in the military. Like the equivalent of a Marine or something, a super fit guy. We both got drunk one night. Not together and not with intentions to hang together. I think it might have been during our city's festival, actually, when everyone gets wasted. Anyway, the night ended with me freaked out upstairs in the corner of my room while he was stumbling around the shared laundry room and knocking on the weak-ass wooden door to my part of the house while repeatedly yelling, "Come down here. I won't rape you. I promise, just come down here for a minute. I'm not going to rape you." I went on a blind date with a guy who said, "The girls I'm attracted to are usually either rape victims or were abused by their fathers. So which one are you, rape victim or father abuse victim?" And then we got married 2 years later. Just kidding, I noped out of there real quick. I'm not sure how awkward this is, but it sure felt awkward at the time. My junior year of high school, I had a US history class with this guy I had had a class with once, but with whom I wasn't really friends. The very first day, I take an empty seat a little ways in front of him. About halfway through class, he leaned forward and got my attention to ask if I was a lesbian. I gave him a confused look and he went on, saying 1 in every 10 girls is a lesbian, and there are 10 girls in this class. You have the shortest hair, so I figured it was you. The summer after I graduated high school, I got a friend request from this guy who was a couple grades below me with whom I had a few mutual friends, so I accepted, no big deal. He messaged me almost immediately and we would talk every so often. He'd compliment me a lot and stuff, but I wasn't attracted to him at all, so I would try to veer the conversation away from anything of that nature. So one day, out of the blue, he messages me asking if he could ask me an awkward question. I say something along the lines of sure, why not, thinking that the worst case scenario was that he'd ask me out and I'd have to politely decline. He proceeds to ask me if it'd be alright if he masturbated to my Facebook pictures. I didn't even have sexy pictures, just the run-of-the-mill duck-faced selfies and pictures with friends. So at this point, I'm totally caught off guard and was like, Sure. Because I had no idea what to say. I mean, what do you even say to that? And then, he had the audacity to ask, do you mind if I go do it right now? Long story short, I blocked him on Facebook, and for a while he would try to find me on different sites and eventually acquired my number somehow. It only stopped when my friend pretended to be my boyfriend and told him to back off. TLDR, if you're going to jack off to my Facebook pictures, please don't ask for permission and definitely don't tell me when you're doing it. I really don't want to know. Walking through the woods with a neighborhood boy when we were about 14. Suddenly he smiled at me and said, you know I could rape you right now. Then grabbed me, laughed, and kept walking. Never went anywhere alone with him again. I had a similar experience when I was 15. I was alone with a guy I casually knew when he offhandedly says, you know, if I didn't have a girlfriend I would totally rape you. As if that were a compliment. Instantly ended that. I still see him around campus occasionally and he always tries to get me to hang out. Nope. Edit. Apparently there's a huge discussion about whether or not he was joking and I shouldn't take it so seriously. He made a point of bringing me into an empty room, from a very busy one, and he didn't say it like it was a joke. It's an experience that has made me extremely wary of being around guys I don't know well. As I mentioned in my original comment, I still see him around occasionally, and he is still a huge asshole who thinks he can do no wrong. I seriously doubt he has any kind of regret for what he said. Speaking as a guy here, my crush in high school invited me over after school to help her with her homework. I thought she was being sexual about it, hormones, and straight up blurted out, your parents wouldn't mind if I slept over. This was in front of her friends, and needless to say, I did not come over that day to help her with her homework. Actually, that's the Friend Zone Elimination Act of 2009 at work. Ever since it passed, relationships are opt-out instead of opt-in. By not responding for 24 hours you legally approved the girlfriend status update. You did file your status change report with the appropriate social media, I hope. If not, Section 32.4 of the bill requires you to buy him flowers. Okay, I'm late to this thread but I will share anyways. So when I was 18 I worked at this Boy Scout camp. I was one of the first Asian females ever on staff, and the staff was primarily white. Anyways, this one white guy gets my number from his friend and starts texting me. Out of nowhere he tells me he has yellow fever. Being the naive 18-year-old I was like, oh, man? You should probably get that checked out. He goes on and on trying to be smooth and me clueless. I am looking at WebMD on my phone to find out about yellow fever and the symptoms. I text him again he should see a doctor right away and that he should drink fluids. He then explains to me that he has a thing for Asians. It was very awkward after that. I needed to get a form out of our manager's desk, which he was sitting at and wouldn't move, so I went around him and was stuck between him and the wall. Then he said, "Looks like you're stuck between a rock and me." I noped the hell out of there as fast as I could, beet red. Dear Lord, here we go. I was at Starbucks with some friends and this guy, age 19, who is socially awkward, joined us. Everything was fine, but the conversation was lagging a bit. So this guy suddenly pipes up asking if any of us ever had something we lied about when we were younger. We all said yes, and he launches into this cringe story. He tells us that when he was 5, yes, 5, that he convinced his parents he was potty trained by dumping the shit out of his diaper and into the toilet and asking them to come look at it in the bowl. It wasn't until later that he actually became potty trained and told his parents his trick. The three of us at the table just tried to ignore that story was ever left his mind. One just buried her head in her hands, the other was fake texting, and I stared at the ceiling. To this day, it's the most awkward thing I've ever been told. TLDR? Socially awkward guy admits he wasn't potty trained at 5, and used to dump his diaper shit in the toilet to make his parents think he was. Edit, people are saying this is a hilarious story, and that I should have laughed. If it was someone I knew well, a friend, then I would have found it funny. However, coming from someone I hardly knew at such a random time, with no hint of humor in his voice, it was awkward. My sophomore year in high school, I was walking into class and one of the students already sitting down asked me as I was walking to my desk, "Let me into your soul, what would you do if you had a penis?" I never had a real back and forth conversation with this guy before he asked me this. Didn't realize that he wanted to know what I'd potentially do to his penis until he texted me days later asking me to fuck. I was in the middle of setting up for my final at college and a guy who had been harassing me all semester came in and wouldn't stop talking to me and asked for my number, all while my teacher was standing there awkwardly. He was ignoring my wishes to be left alone and asking him to leave until I gave him my number. I finally gave him a fake one which he asked, "Can you repeat that number to me? I usually get fake ones." I had a date with a guy that was set up by friends. Minutes after we ordered food, he rubbed his thighs and told me that he loves fucking fat chicks because they have fat pussies. He said fucking thin girls is like throwing a wiener down a hallway. I waddled my fat ass right the fuck out of that restaurant. I had a man come up to me and tell me that I needed to wear a better bra because my girls were all over the place. I was walking on the seawall in Vancouver and wearing a sports bra. He then said that he could tell me things like this because he was gay and it is his duty to reprimand women that don't dress right. He tried to hug me. The image of a guy walking up to a girl, farting and just leaving right after has got to be the funniest thing in this thread. Normally, I try to reassure people that the awkward moments from their past haunt only them. Embarrassment is a much stronger emotional reaction than amusement, so we remember our shame but rarely others. However, there is no chance that she forgot you walking up to her and farting. Sorry. His OkCupid opener was, "I'll tie you up and fuck you all over my house, even where I keep the dog food." To make matters worse, his next message proceeded to blame the message on his roommate, who had his phone last night. Edit: to clarify, the guy continued to solicit a one-night stand after this exchange, hence why I doubt his roommate explanation. I went on a date with this guy who I didn't really have anything in common with but thought I'd give him a shot anyways. We met up at a bar and he had already pounded 2 pitchers of beer but was completely sober, at least from what I could tell. We hung out, talked, and it was confirmed that I really had no interest in him. I wanted to leave but he convinced me to go to another bar to get one last drink. Seeing as it was only about 8 p.m. I agreed to one more drink. We were sitting at the bar and a couple was making out next to us. He looked at me and asked what I thought people in the bar would do if he and I started making out. I knew where this was going. I tried to laugh and make some joke about no one paying attention. He then insisted that we should make out. I nervously laughed and told him that wasn't a very good idea and excused myself to the restroom. I came back to the seat. And he had a shot waiting for me and insisted I drink it. No shot for him, just me. I declined and he got really upset and said he was ready to go. At that point in the evening he had consumed 2 pitchers of beer, 4 margaritas, and 2 more pints, yet displayed no sign of being intoxicated. Nonetheless, I knew there was a lot of alcohol in his system, and asked if he thought it was a good idea for him to drive. He got defensive and said he was fine. We exited the bar and he told me to have a good night. He took off in the opposite direction, didn't even walk me to my car. When I got home I texted him just to make sure he was okay. His response? "I only date girls I fuck on the first date." He said a lot of awkward things that night, but that last line definitely took the cake. Okay, I'm a guy but I know for a fact I've done some really awkward shit. Once I was walking down the hall and a girl looks at me and says, "Hey/you/bad customer service, you have really big feet." To which I then replied, the only one to ever say that to me before was my mom. I continued walking, and didn't look back. When I was very pregnant I was playing pool with my boyfriend and some of his friends. It was my turn and I was bending over to take my shot and their one weird friends was behind and said, "Yeah, cut that pussy open." No idea what it meant, but it creeped me and everyone else the fuck out. A guy friend was stroking my arm at a bar. I was drunk and didn't mind cause it kinda felt nice, even though it seemed weird. After some time, he gets a quizzical look and says, "Wow, your skin is so soft, despite the muscles underneath. You have very nice muscles, just tender enough." If we were ever in one of those situations where we had to resort to cannibalism to survive, I'd definitely eat you first. I might not even wait until it became necessary for survival, I might just eat you first anyway. I mean, you're not really pretty enough to date, but if you wanna have sex I'm down. Not only did I have a boyfriend, but he came up to me at a bar that I was at with my boyfriend. Sounds like he heard about negging on the internet. Here. It's good to know that Black Hat is still with the girl he met on the train. Journal 1, Journal 2, Journal 3, Journal 4, Journal 5. This was a friend of mine. We were at a concert together, and some guys came over afterwards. They were pretty drunk, and one in particular kept hitting on her. She tried to ignore it, but he was persistent. Eventually he asked her if she'd like to come back to his place, to which she explained, "I have a boyfriend. His name is Frank." Without missing a beat, he said, "Then can I be frank with you? 'Cause you're smoking." Didn't work, but we had a great laugh. Seems like he, and a lot of guys in this thread, are going for the throw spaghetti at the wall and see if any sticks approach. Edit, the number one mistake men make with women is thinking they're machines. Correct input equals desired output. Nope. You have to actually relate to them. Use your eyes to see, ears to hear, sense of tact to feel. Oops. There was this one time my husband and I were at a bar. There wasn't many people there, and my husband was making small talk for a moment with the guy sitting next to him. So I started making small talk with the guy sitting next to me. We chatted for a few minutes. Then a commercial came on the TV in front of us about snoring, and I made a comment like, "Oh, this guy," points at husband, "snores bad, especially around this time of year. We should pick some of that up on the way home, haha." I know that's stupid, but again, I was making small talk and we were slightly intoxicated. Then this douche turns to me and says, "Why the fuck do you think I care about anything you're talking about? I don't give a fuck about who in your life snores." I just laughed and turned my back to him. A friend was supposed to stay the night at my apartment in exchange for a ride home, edit, from a party. Eventually he got a little too out of it to the point where I drove his car instead. We were testing out the Oculus at the time and he finally became too tired to sleep on the couch. I told him he could share my bed. His final words before passing out were, "I promise I won't rape you." Lots of these become way less awkward when said to an SO. While reading a post further up I giggled, GF asked me why and I asked her to sing to my penis. We went down a whole route of her singing "Wake Me Up, Before You Go Go" while using my penis as a microphone. 3 times. What? Do people become suicidal near you? Edit, hey, I've been feeling really down lately, you know. Edit, Merry Christmas. I think it's one of those things where people can just spot you and know you'll fall for it. I've also had 3 different people pull that shit on me. The first was my daughter's father when I was 16 because I said I wanted to resume using condoms with him. He'd asked me the day before during sex what would happen if he didn't use one, and I was obviously not thinking clearly and just said it'd be okay. Somehow that morphed into I wanted to have his child. I did not. I did anyway because he threatened to kill himself if I didn't keep having unprotected sex with him. He did similar things quite a few times. From there, I guess the personal damage to me was apparent and I just attracted manipulative, fake suicidal people. I didn't sleep with any more of them though. This didn't happen to me, but in high school me and my friend, I'm male she's female, decided to go to prom together. My friend is always looking to help out people who are struggling, so she had been talking to this guy who had been depressed and cutting himself. She just wanted to be a friend to this guy who was going through some shit. It turns out he started liking her and started making advances toward her, but she was not into him at all, and told him explicitly because she didn't want to look like she was leading him on. Well, we decided to go to prom together amidst this awkward situation. And of course this guy asks her to prom a little while after that, even after she already said she didn't like him like that. Then he started telling her that he started cutting himself again, and blamed her for him feeling even depressed. My friend basically cut all communication with him. After that, She had tried to be nice, but she just ended up being harassed by this dude. That whole situation was just too awkward. On. Sir, I'm sorry, unless there's something I can actually locate for you, I really need to get back to work. Well, if you guys don't have that other stuff, can I get a date with you? I just stared at him, told him I was flattered but spoken for, and went into the back. When I came out maybe 30 seconds later, he'd left the store. If he'd been properly groomed and genuine, he might have been cute, but he came off as unkempt, show why, inept, immature, and canned. It was like he was wearing a crown of red flags. Up artist, or is following the advice of one. 10 seconds pause while he stares at my forehead. Do you guys have any ice cream? Reminder, thrift clothing store. Sorry, we don't sell food products here. Oh. What about hamburgers? These pauses while he thinks stretch forever. He dramatically scratches his chins. This feels painfully rehearsed, despite the awful pacing of his lines. We don't sell food products here. Oh. What about a live chimpanzee? No sense of timing or delivery, it's so perfectly terrible I'm almost expecting someone with a camera to come out. We're fresh out, sorry. Maybe a unicorn. At this point I realize he has a buddy watching him. His friend seems amused. Me, not so much. This guy is utterly wasting my time. My supervisor is staring at me from across the room, trying to figure out what the hell is gone. Working retail at thrift store, it's busy as fuck, I have a ton of shit to do, and it's obvious all employees are busy around the store. Early 30s guy comes up to me while I'm racking an armload of shirts. He's trying to look dressed up, but his hair is greasy and badly needs a trim. He's unshaven, and the clothing is completely inappropriate to the environment. He's wearing an ill-fitting but expensive-looking short-sleeve silk dress shirt and slacks with a fedora. He says, "Can you help me find something?" But it comes out as a declaration. Like a speaking volume version of "Can you help me find something?" No question implied by tone of voice. My first assumption is that he is mentally handicapped, and I feel sorry for him. In my best retail voice and smile, "Sure, what are you looking for?" He starts, and I realize he's not handicapped, he just believes himself to be a pick. Not girl, but bartender. Overheard a guy trying to pick up a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. Now, this guy has had a few drinks by now. He says to her, "You know, you could be Hitler's daughter." After she reacted negatively to that, he started trying to regain ground by explaining he meant she was an Aryan beauty. It didn't help. My brother was just introducing me to one of his pothead friends and stepped out to get something from the car. Surprise. It was a pipe, when the guy opened with this beauty. "See this bed here? I had a three-way right here just days ago." It was so awkward as it was, but even worse when he followed up with, "Wanna come sit next to me?" Patting on the bed. He also managed to trap me in front of his kitchen sink later that night, both arms on the counter keeping me from running, and proceeded to tell me how much he wanted me. I limboed the fuck out of there like my shortus depended on it. To add the cherry on top of this horror story, the three-way. Yeah, he had it with two more rats I knew, F and M. The chick ended up knocked up from that ordeal. Underscore. Was trying to be friendly to an acquaintance who was alone all night at some event. Out of the blue he goes, "Most people think pepper spray is the best weapon for fending off an attacker. But it's not. A knife is better. Wanna know why? 'Cause pepper spray has a smaller target area, a knife you can plunge in anywhere. He then proceeded to talk about all the ways you can stab someone who's coming at you. Useful info sure, but the way he talked about it creeped me out, empty yet obsessive. He asked me out not long after that and I found ways to be busy. It's pretty hard to beat this awkward interaction. Hard, but not impossible. I read all 5 parts. I cried about halfway through. Then I was just tired. The taste of bile filled my mouth. I was in denial that it was real, but what if it wasn't? What if that guy was a troll? What if he was serious? Each of Op's replies left me with more questions than answers. And then, the final reply from Op, I don't know. I don't get how girls think at all. That was the end. It was finished there. To quote the end of the thread, it ended not with a shank, but with a omega. But now, I'm numb. There is nothing left for me to feel anymore. I was 15 years old, working in the cafeteria of a car parts factory. One day, an older, 45 to 50 truck driver asked me if I'd hold it against him if he told me I had a great body. Mortified, I tell him well yeah. What? Why? Because I'm 15, man. What? Really? Well, do you need a bodyguard? Nope. Whilst trying to run away. What about if I adopted you? I have 2 very loving parents, thank you no. And noped out of there as fast as I could. Edit, extra story I recalled. I was talking back and forth with this one kid that wanted to chat that was in the same gaming Facebook group with. Fast forward a couple of months of sparse chatting with more and more creepy notes, and he ends up likening me to a sexy horsewoman. Loudest sound on the floor. She paused for a moment. I wiped my face with my sleeve. She said have fun? And walked away. That was fucking awkward by my definition. What I'm learning from reading this comment thread is that women regard the word awkward a bit differently than I do. Seems mostly like creepy to me. In university, I was taking a series of audio recording classes and there was a girl in there that I was so drawn to that she made me nervous when she was around. One time, I was scheduled to record but I showed up early and my guitarist was the one getting the keys, so I stood outside with a bottle of water waiting. The girl popped up around the corner right there and my heart jumped. I immediately opened the bottle and started taking a drink to act natural. She said, "Hey. What are you up to?" I still had the bottle tilted up, so water was still pouring in and my mouth was full. I responded immediately with a water garbled getting ready to record and water spilled out of my mouth, all over my face and sweatshirt and made the "Girl, you biracial. 'Cause that is a ghetto booty." At first it was super flattering. Best compliment ever. But then he crossed the street to get to me. He informed me that it wasn't safe for sexy girls like you to be going anywhere alone. It was 11 a.m. And I was literally in the middle of campus. Ended up walking around downtown Richmond with a middle-aged black man for half an hour. Aimlessly, mind you, because I didn't want him to know where my apartment was. I'm still unsure if he was actually being nice or being creepy. See, this is my weakness. My inability to discern creepiness is probably why I've had multiple stalkers. But they weren't bad stalkers. Just misunderstood stalkers. God damn it. Well, how about a situation where he blatantly told me how awkward it was? This boy I had met through a mutual friend, we were 17, asked me to be his girlfriend after our first date. Little fast, but hey, we were 17. Except he phrased it, "This is awkward, but wanna be my girlfriend." And then stuck his lizard-like tongue in my mouth for my first kiss ever. High school wasn't all that great for me. One time at my church youth group I was sitting with a boy I had a crush on. We were just chatting while sitting on the floor of the hall. He was fiddling with stuff that was on the floor. He picked one of the items up and handed it to me saying, "Want a screw?" 'Cause it was a screw. Once he realized what he said he blushed and got all awkward. It was cute. I knew he wasn't intentionally crude. I guess it was more awkward for him. One of my old roommates went up to a 6'2" black girl at a bar. He's about 5'6" but has insane confidence after 10 whiskey cokes, and says, "Damn, girl. You shit with that ass." She thought it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard and they had sex that night.